Success, I know. Lucky there's such a big audience.
Yeah, it's really okay. This is a rehearsal.
Anyone in the forest, did you really clap?
We could be singing to the trees. Not in the trees. Okay, what's next? Oh, we give thanks to this blessed day. Do you want to join us and sing? No. Oh, we give thanks. What hymn number is it, everybody? What?
What is your name? This is kind of call and response, right?
Probably. Oh, we give thanks. Oh, we give thanks to the blessed. Okay, how about we do it? You guys do the first part, the call, and I'll do the response with the violin. Is that okay? Yep. Okay. 1, 2, 3. That's you guys. 1 and 2 and 3. Oh, for the precious
precious day, for gathered here, those far away, for the time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for gathered here.
one more time.
For this precious day, oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We'll gather here, those far away, for the time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Time is it, everybody?
It's 11:30 or 11:40.
Time for another
Okay,
song.
it's time.
Time for another song. Hey, Mark.
It's time. Alrighty. Everybody, you all know that Deanna lost her mom 2 days ago. Through COVID. So big. Deanna, can we put you in the circle and we're just going to hold you in that? Let's all take a deep breath. Okay, everybody, I have to get in there. Hi, guys. Well, I don't know if the end of that is the carnival. Anyway, good morning. Hi.
Good morning, Shirley.
Good morning again.
Hello, Shirley, I'm here.
So do we have to do?
Well, you're good, except I should probably wash your hands
Wash
again
your
if
hands.
you could. Just a little squirt.
I've done mine already.
I know.
A couple times.
You've
but
been in
that's
and
okay.
out a couple times. You're gonna skip me, huh?
Good morning. So, a couple of things right off the bat. First of all, thank you all for coming here today, physically. And those of you who are watching at home, thank you for tuning in. We're all putting this thing on together. And the presence of those here and the presence of those watching from home all factor in, all count. So we're glad that we're all here, whether you're in the room with us or you're at home. Thank you for showing up. We're putting this thing on and everyone is kind of having to do their part. Your part is showing up, your part is tuning in at home. You might hear some noises if you're at home of chairs moving as we make adjustments to where people are sitting. Okay, we're live now? Good, okay. Oh, that's a good time to remind us to silence your cell phones. Folks at home, if you don't want to silence your cell phones, that's okay. I won't be sad. But if you're here and your phone goes off, everyone across the world will know it. And normally I don't like motivating by shame, but in this case, I will. So let's turn off our phones, make sure that that doesn't interrupt us or the folks at home. Now, normally on this Sunday, our sanctuary would be abuzz. You know, a congregation joyfully greeting each other after summer excursions. It's a little more quiet this year. But I can tell you that the spirit of reunion is alive and well in me and you at home and those 23 or so souls here on the sanctuary floor this morning. So I bid all of you a happy and heartfelt welcome back. Although I must say that more than welcome back, what I want to be able to say is welcome home. Now, last year we sampled this idea that the feeling of home is a spiritual experience. It's very real, that feeling, but it can't be measured. It's intangible, but it shapes us. It's who we are. It's part of our identity. So that the feeling of home is a spiritual experience and, in a way, can stand in for spiritual experience. All right? So we played with that a little bit last year. But it's more than just a spiritual experience, at least more than just a personal one. And I hope to elucidate this later this morning and probably throughout the year, and I hope maybe throughout the rest of your precious life. The feeling of home, where we find it, how we experience it, how we craft it, is the essence of congregational life. It's the essence of the spiritual life, and quite possibly that feeling of home and its cultivation is our best hope for planetary survival and ecological regeneration. Now, this has been made all the more clear to me due to all the spiritual, physical, occupational, and personal displacement occurring right now as we navigate through the various calamities visiting our world. And so we've got some puzzles to mull over as we figure out how to make a church home in this COVID era. Central to that puzzle, central to our homemaking as a congregation, is our sense of community. And this is a great puzzle right now. How does the spiritual community do community when we cannot be physically together? So I'll present some possible paths forward in a bit. But if we could, just for a moment, linger in the wisdom and good feeling of how important community, and in particular to remember how important this community is. And for that, I'd like to ask for help from our service associate this morning, Leslie Gibbons. It's good to see you here, Leslie. Now, earlier this week, I let Leslie know that I was holding the idea of home up with this idea of community. And I asked her if she would think about how this community is and has been home for her. So Leslie, if you have a testimony here, this would be the time to share it.
Good morning to all of you. And it's absolutely wonderful to see you all sitting here and to know that the rest of the congregation is out there watching as well. Well, Ron has asked me, how does spiritual community do community when we're not together in a physical space? Well, that's an especially meaningful question for me right now, because I have felt the presence of community, that sense of home and community, for the last 8 months. And I've only left my house a couple of times. Our community has not been in this building, together in one place. We haven't been together in one place for a long time. But I have felt that we've always been together. Nonetheless, we're always together. We're held together even when we're apart by the love and the caring we have for each other, the love and caring that we give each other, because we, together, are like a living organism, breathing in and breathing out our love and our concerns for each other. And I have felt this so personally in the last little while. Over the past months, while my husband, Maurice, was becoming more ill, and then after his death, I was sustained by you. I was held by your love and your kindness, your beautiful support, your encouraging words, your flowers, your phone calls, and your offers of help. Our community holds so many lifetimes of experience here, so much wisdom and compassion, so much appreciation for those amongst us who are still here, but perhaps at the beginning of their end journey, and for those who are already on their death journeys. All this and so much more that we experience together when apart is what I call home. So homecoming to me is that moment when we connect and we reconnect with our spiritual community that has no need for a building. Our spiritual home is our community. And it's always with us, and it's always in our hearts. When we come into our community, either by phone or Zoom or letter or thought, we have come home. Ron came to visit Maurice several times during his last months. He came to see Maurice the evening before he died. They had deep conversations together about life and death and breath and oxygen and the beyond. They talked about what could be, what might be next. And Maurice was very excited to find out. Ron's words had such resonance with Maurice that he took them with him when he left. He spoke about them just before he died. It's as if speaking to Ron helped open the door to the next room. Perhaps to Maurice, helped open the door to his next homecoming. The words "thank you" seem woefully inadequate for all that you've done to help us, to help me, all you've done to honor the man Maurice was and still is to me. Thank you for all your cards, your phone calls, your prayers, your thoughts, for the wine, the flowers, the food, the encouragement, and the love. Thank you. Thank you for making each moment with you all a homecoming for me when I was wandering and a bit lost and aimless and sad. So I would like to light a candle this morning to acknowledge and celebrate, well, us. We've held on, and we're going to continue to do so until our voices can be heard again, raising this roof. Thank you all again. And may the light of understanding illuminate our darkness, and may the warmth of sharing bring us hope and peace.
I'd like to say a word about hymn being. Because of COVID, we can't sing these hymns unless you're blessed and at home. But we can contemplate these hymns. You're welcome to hum them if you so choose, or you could simply notice what the words are. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, come, let us come.
Just in case you didn't catch it, we are allowed to hum. So, as Leslie pointed out to me earlier today, that was hum number 188. Not to be cut off. Not through the slightest partition shut out from the law of the stars. The inner. What is it if not intensified sky? Hurled through with birds and deep with the winds of homecoming. These words from René Rilke have been reverberating in my mind now for a number of days. In fact, I was reciting them to the trees up in Lynn Valley the other day when I received a return communication. For reals. Some of you may hear that your minister was reciting poetry to the forest and think, but of course, that is how it is done. Others may think I've been taken by fancy. Both camps might be right at the same time, and I want to explain in any case. So one of the things that I've done over the summer is take an online course from the mythologist and storyteller, Dr. Martin Shaw. Shaw is a native of Dartmoor, up near Scotland, I think, on the moors of England, northern England. And he's rather insistent from nobly and hard-won experience that stories, fables, fairy tales, and myths are products of the land. They're products of the land that rise up and lodge in our jawbones until speech resonates them into our hearts and dreams and behaviors. Stories are creations of the earth. Now, this makes perfect sense to me. We are from the earth. Everything about us, everything, including our emotions and our intellects, are from the earth. We are the earth telling stories. Not just communicating. Everything communicates. Story is a particular kind of communication. It's a symbiosis. It's a reciprocal identity, a bonding, a spiritual kind of procreation to recognize that stories come from the land and that we are the earth telling stories. But now, unless we have learned to unbuckle our minds from time, the eco-range and the human mind move in very different chronological scales. Time is different to a red cedar than it is to us. And so it is that without real intention and some hard spiritual labor, it takes a good amount of time, generations, for us humans to bring ourselves into an alignment with the dreaming earth. Now, we immigrants are not, by and large, in that kind of a relationship. And it shows. We refugees, we colonists fleeing class or seeking it. We abducted, we whose ancestors sought for plenty and safety over land bridges, on barges, and even in bureaucracies. And we who came against our will are all here orphans and runaways. We are displaced where we are. And we find ourselves cut off from the source of our storied mind, that land that birthed our ancestors' dreams. Most of us, then, are homeless, spiritually oblivious. Still, every now and then, we catch a glimpse. And then, not to be cut off, not through the slightest partition, shut out from the law of the stars. The inner What is it if not intensified sky, hurled through with birds and deep with the winds of homecoming? Homecoming. Feeling known and embraced by that which you behold. But we are orphans and runaways, cast-offs and stowaways. Our homelessness is guaranteed. It's guaranteed in a world that we prize as new over known. And that's been our way. Ever new, never home, ever other, and so disposable, ignorable, pollutable, abusable. I want to be home. recap where we've been for a minute because I told you I was going to talk about community, and then I sort of meandered off into the woods with poetry. We started with the welcoming words about the question of how to make a home and figured that community was key. But then I swerved and shifted location of community to the land and accepted Dr. Shaw's wisdom that our stories, our deep stories, those of poetry and myth, are the land emerging through the sieve of our mind and bodies. Those stories are home spoken. They indicate a spiritual harmony or relationship, at least. I then observed that culturally and often individually, we are not at home here without intention and hard work. We are cut off. We are orphans. And deep down, I think, we all know this. Often, our cultural response has been to impose our former sense of home, to take the structures and systems and stories that we were culturally accustomed to going back generations and impose them on the eco-range in which we now find ourselves. Now, this is an unfortunate response to a real problem. For if we don't find our way home with integrity to the actual place that we are in, then we will continue to mistake our world for a stranger, for an object, for a resource. And you've seen what our species does to strangers and things we think are things. From Brazil to Washington, the lungs of the world are on fire. That is our oxygen burning. Its smoke makes the air here visible. Air that has already been made frightening and possibly dangerous by the COVID-19 virus. So these feel like warning signs. They better feel like warning signs. They are consequences. And maybe they are pleas for help. I can't breathe. For we have not treated the earth as home, but put our knee on her neck to force her to our will. And she is dying. Our home. The story associated with that plea for mercy, I can't breathe, reminds me that we have also not been treating each other as family. For what else do you call those with whom you share home? This is an important point with which to navigate out of our present tragedy. Home is about relationship. That's fairly simple. It is about family, familiarity. At the heart of homemaking, at the heart of spiritual invigoration, is relationship to place, persons, and history as the promise of the future. Relationship is the heart of homemaking. Our relationship with each other and our relationship with the world around us. These are the components of home. That's simple. That's not mysterious. They're related. They're related, those two ideas. And how they're related, that actually is a bit mysterious to me. How our relationship with each other and our relationship with the world is related. I don't know how, but they are. I mean, the upheaval in the world right now seems to offer further evidence that the biological, ecological, political, and personal are related. And right now, those relationships are broken. We are broken. Not coming to terms with how broken we are will not change anything. We are broken because we mistakenly thought we were home. But deep down, we knew our disconnection. That's kind of the reason why we're here in some ways, right? Our sense of home, culturally, our sense of home was really just narcissistic imposition on the earth. Yet we made rather meek attempts, even knowing that we were disconnected, we made rather meek attempts at correction. And now we find ourselves shaken from our mistaken assumptions. And the world as our mirror is showing us how displaced we are and forcing us to acknowledge that our present path is one of homelessness. I want to be home. I want to be home. And so when Dr. Martin Shaw says that to accelerate our adoption by the land, we ought first to memorize a poem and then speak that poem to a tree or a boulder or a copse or forest or stream. Recite it aloud and with the effect appropriate to both the poem and the place. And then listen. Ah, not to be cut off. And out to the woods I went, reciting to the canopy. I wasn't flagrant about it. But I did feel I needed to speak loud enough to be heard. And yes, I felt the fool for a moment, but I can tell you this: Shaw is right. There is a kind of magic by which a change is made between the world and you when you recite a memorized poem to its face. Do it. Try it. See if you notice a change and some magic. I imagine it's effective because speaking the deep and dreamlike dialect of poetry is more akin to the language of the creative world than less sonorous vocabularies. I mean, you could try reading the ingredients on a box of cereal and then try reading a poem, and you could do a controlled experiment to see what the forest likes better. I wouldn't say it was dramatic, the change. It wasn't earth-shaking, but it was noticeable. My senses were drawn into a slightly more focused exchange. The gold-green sunlight through the leaves was just a little more so. I noticed the scent of the woods brought to me by the breeze flushing through the forest. I was more there. Maybe the effect was just in me, but it was an effect, and I felt like we were entering into relationship, and then, boom, I tripped. I stayed upright. I didn't sprawl, but I nearly broke an ankle to do it. It was a little, mostly buried boulder emerging from the middle of the path that caught my toe. Now, I'd walked that trail dozens of times and never tripped on that stone. And each time, I was far more oblivious than I was this time. When reciting poetry to chlorophyll like a holy fool, I almost wound up on my face. So I must say that this felt like an utter betrayal of the relationship promised by Dr. Shaw. But I had to think about it for a bit. And it soon occurred to me that I had been speaking to the limbs and leaves, the lungs and guts of the woods. The boulder drew my attention down to the soil. Beneath the soil snaked the roots and mycelium, which are the neural network of the forest. The brain of an eco-range is underfoot. The rock was telling me that I was talking to the wrong organ, or at least not to the whole of the being, and the brain wanted to hear better, or at least wanted more of my attention. And in retrospect, it also occurs that forest fires are due in large part, or actually almost entirely, to poor soil health. Without healthy soil, the water cycle breaks and forests become fires. Or maybe the lesson was a little bit more like, I should listen more. You think you're clever, said that rock, but you're an idiot if you forget where you are while you're hoping to connect with it. Show a little respect. Or maybe it's also true that you know you are in a real relationship when you can tease and remonstrate, and that remonstration is understood as an invitation to repair an oversight. In any case, we were definitely relating. And I'm glad that our mutual evolutions brought that rock and I together at that moment. Now, I am aware that that sounds like a bunch of crystal-worshipping pig detergent. But hogwash, it ain't. And here's why. I am an expression of the earth, as are you, and the woods, and that rock, and the coronavirus, and the redwoods, the air that connects us all, to all that you behold. All of that with various kinds of overlapping intelligence. We are of the earth. The poem just opened a space wherein the relationship between earthly expressions was invited to be more, if not intentional, then at least noticeable. A space where we were able to translate one another and offer some feedback on that translation. There's nothing woo-woo about that. Just a little closer home. And if this is just a story, but I am the earth telling stories. And right now, my story is that I want to be home. I want us all to be home. And we're not home yet. Not enough of us. But if we do it right, and I don't necessarily know what right is, but if we do it right, I think we can cultivate a sense of home with integrity. And if we do it right, I think we can resonate that sense from the communal to the ecological to the civilizational to the global. And if we do it right, we will not be the least shut out. And we will more easily hurl through the intensified sky of our shared belonging with every breath a homecoming. Please join me in hum number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place. So I'll invite you to pray with me in a moment. And I know that's still a weird word for some, but I don't know that a poem said to a tree, now maybe you think that's weird too, is very much a prayer. We are invoking with words something from the heart to the world. And perhaps by doing it, it will change our relationship. So I invite you to pray with me. We thank you, Son, for your light and your energy. We thank you, Earth, for holding us close, for giving us stories. We thank you, water, for life. And we thank you, air, for connecting us to everything. Today I want to say a special prayer for all those people who are fighting the fires or caring for the soil, all the earth regenerators who are preventing them from happening in the first place, and all the people that are currently very literally homeless. Let us endeavor to be those regenerators, those earth regenerators. And pray for the safety of all those first responders helping people in need. I want to lift up Deanna Diaz from our congregation, whose mother passed away over the weekend. It was particularly heartbreaking because Deanna's mother was in Mexico, and of course in this time we cannot cross borders easily. But Deanna, know that you are held by this community, and we pray for your mother's spirit and your whole family. I'll close this prayer with words from Joanna Macy. She says, out of this darkness, a new world can arise. Not to be constructed by our minds so much as to emerge from our dreams. Even though we cannot see clearly how it is going to turn out, we are still called to let the future into our imagination. We will never be able to build what we have not first cherished in our hearts. This is a dark time filled with suffering and uncertainty. Like living cells in a larger body, it is natural to feel the trauma of our world. So don't be afraid of the anguish you feel, or the anger or the fear. For these responses arise from the depth of your caring and the truth of your interconnectedness with all beings. To suffer with is the literal meaning of compassion. And I might say that compassion certainly is one path that will cultivate home. Amen.
As most of you know, but perhaps for those of you watching who are new to our congregation, in this community, we celebrate people from all walks of life. No matter how you make your living, no matter how you experience the sacred, no matter who you love, we always want you to feel welcome here. And we also, each month, contribute to an outreach recipient. That's where our collected donations go from each week. And this month, the outreach recipient for September is St. James Music Academy. And they're located in the downtown east side of Vancouver. It's a nonprofit music school, and it's committed to social change through the power and love of music. And I believe a new procedure is that there will be a donations basket outside the doors, each door, for you to contribute. If you can be generous this morning, we won't be handing around any plate today. I also want to remind you that now each Sunday we'll be meeting at 11:30 in the morning. This is a new thing. I hope we didn't catch anybody short this morning, but it's an 11:30 service and it's live streamed on YouTube and recorded so you can view it later. But if you want to find out more, check your bulletin or the newsletter. Now I'd like to hand things over to Ron again.
Especially key in that announcement is to read your newsletter and e-bulletin. Sometimes it goes, if you've got Gmail like me, it goes into promotions or social, so you have to go look for it there. But it's so important. We have to be super intentional about getting together and communicating. So the staff can only do so much to be intentional about getting it to you. You have to be intentional about picking it up. So please, I'm looking at you, camera, and people at home, look at your e-bulletin. Because you'll also find, for those of you at home, you'll find a link in there where you can contribute to our charities of each month. So please take advantage of that for engagement of all kinds. Also, I promised you earlier that I would let you know how we're going to try to solve this puzzle of community in a time when we can't do community in the way that we used to do community, right? And how that relates somehow to home. We'll discover that together. But we're going to be having small group ministries, and I would encourage all of you to join, every single one of you. It's my goal to get every member and friend in a small group. Now, we'll unroll or roll out these small groups come October or so. I just want to put it on your radar so that when we do roll it out, that you make sure you sign up, because this is the way that we can be together without being together. And some small groups, they'll probably be, give or take, around 7, right? Some small groups might elect to meet in person. Some might only wish to do Zoom. Some might do a hybrid model or be flexible in how they meet. And we'll sort all that out. There's a lot of gears that we need to mesh up there. So we're trying to figure out the mechanism to determine how we do all of that. So October is when it will roll out. So when the time comes, I ask that each of you sign up. It's how we're going to cultivate community beyond community. That's how we're going to regenerate our sense of church as home. And also, there will be other opportunities that we will engage with as the year goes on. In October, we're going to start our anti-racist reading group. So that would be in addition to the small group ministry. So you'll sign up for that as an additional offering. I believe those are meeting once a month. So if you sign up for both of those, for instance, you'll have 2 opportunities to meet with various different small groups in the church. And the Living Our Values environmentally group, our ecologically concerned church members will also be rolling out an offering that you can engage in as well. We're going to start the integration circles up again on, I believe, on Tuesdays. We'll probably do that in October as well. So that will be other ways that you can intentionally cultivate your sense of community and home in these very weird times. And I strongly encourage you to do that, because that is where you will find your ability to be vulnerable. You will find your ability to connect and be courageous and to offer love to one another. So please sign up for at least the small group ministry, and I would encourage you to find at least one other, if not more, these groups to sign up for as well. So that is how we are going to address this issue, this puzzle of how to do community when you can't be in community. Also, I think next week we're going to try to do our water communion. Now, I have not quite figured out how we're doing that. I have a pretty good idea, but I need to get a couple of more brains in the room to think it through with me. And for it to work, you are going to have to open your email. If you're the person that doesn't do email, Janny or somebody will call you. But in the meantime, pay attention to like a special from the minister bulletin that will instruct us how we're going to do water communion when we can't commune. So lots of puzzles this year, but something tells me that this is the group to try to figure them out with. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here, people at home. You're here with us too. It's good to see you all, and I look forward to seeing those who weren't here today at another occasion. Remember, you have to register to be here. You guys did a great job. Good job coming in. Thank you to the production team, who is a new bunch of folks that are helping us get this to the folks at home. So Ross, Malcolm, and the crew. Thank you. Ross looks like an astronaut of some kind over there with the earphones, the mask, the glasses. It's very, yeah. And Roy, thank you, Roy, for the sound. So anyway, this is a new communal production that we're doing, and you guys were a part of it. Thank you for being a part of it at home. And let's extinguish our chalice.
Soul Matters groups are still meeting as well,
And, right,
as on
right.
top of everything.
Right, and that a Soul Matters group would kind of qualify as that initial group, right? So if you're already in a Soul Matters group, you're ahead of the curve.
One of the few times in my life I've been ahead of
Congratulations.
much. We extinguish this flame, but carry with us the light of vision and the warmth of hope. The world calls us to live with depth and meaning and purpose, and we go forth with courage and love.